And accused of shooting his parents on Christmas morning, 29-year-old Dino Tomasetti is back on Long Island to face attempted murder charges. Nassau County detectives escorted him out of police headquarters this morning. Authorities say officers answered a call Saturday about a disturbance at a home on Seawain Drive in Hewlett Harbor. They found Tomasetti's 64-year-old mother shot in the head and his 65-year-old father shot in the back. Police say Tomasetti had argued with his parents, who were caring for his one-year-old son.
The defendant attempted to physically take the child from the parents and attempt to leave with the residents. When the parents objected, the defendant produced a .22 caliber pistol. He struck his father then in the head with the gun numerous times after he ran out of bullets.
Police say the child was not hurt. Tomasetti's parents were treated and released from a hospital. Authorities had tracked Tomasetti to New Jersey, where he was taken into custody there.
Rocco and Vincenza have 3 children, including twins Rocco and Dino Jr. and daughter Gina, 24. Rocco Tomasetti owns several construction firms and helped build some of Manhattan's most iconic towers, but his company and the family have been embroiled in several construction-related scandals and reportedly took a bribe from a mob turncoat. Rocco was also accused of trying to bribe union officials and dumping cement sludge in Newton Creek. His company, Empire Transit Mix, was banned from city contracting under former mayor Rudy Giuliani, according to the New York Times. Cement company banned from City Hall Park renovation. Since January, the Empire Transit Mix Company of Brooklyn has supplied $200,000 worth of cement for one of Giuliani's administration's pet projects, the renovation of City Hall Park. Empire also had orders to deliver an additional $400,000 worth of cement in coming months. But yesterday, the administration abruptly banned Empire from the park project after questions were raised about the company's close affiliation with the L'Aquila Construction Company, a Brooklyn-based firm that has a troubled history with law enforcement agencies and that in the past has been disqualified from competing for city contracts. L'Aquila and several of its officials were implicated in criminal charges of filing false information to inflate profits on a city contract and of bribing a union official to overlook collective bargaining violations. In 1987, L'Aquila was indicted in connection with an illegal debris dumping scheme in New Jersey that law enforcement officials asserted was led by a member of the Gambino crime family. The charges against L'Aquila were later dropped as part of a $25,000 civil settlement. Empire is owned by Rocco Tomasetti, 42, who is listed in corporation records as the treasurer and secretary of L'Aquila. His father, Dino Tomasetti, 71, is the president of L'Aquila. The younger Mr. Tomasetti owns 16% of L'Aquila, according to records the company filed with the city, and is described as one of L'Aquila's main owners. On a private construction job in 1997, the city's buildings department temporarily halted work at Donald J. Trump's Riverside South complex after finding that L'Aquila had used defective cement supplied by Empire. The problem was later corrected by L'Aquila, and construction of the Upper West Side complex, now called Trump's Place, resumed. City officials said yesterday that Empire had not undergone a background check for the City Hall Park renovation because the company was not paid directly by the city and was not listed by the general contractor as Barney Skanska Company as a subcontractor. Instead, the officials said Empire arranged to deliver the cement to an approved subcontractor, the Colbar Construction Corporation of East Elmhurst, Queens, which is being paid $1.3 million by the city as a part of a $22.4 million contract awarded last year by the Parks Department. Colleen Roche, a spokeswoman for Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, said city procurement regulations mandate background checks known as Vendex reviews for prime contractors and subcontractors, but exempt suppliers from routine examinations. Edward Schuyler, a Parks Department spokesman, said the Department of City's Department of Investigation began a review of Empire and its links to L'Aquila after a reporter for the New York Times on Friday asked for details of Empire's role at the park. Close supervision of city construction contracts has been a priority in the Giuliani administration. In recent weeks, Empire cement mixer trucks have been a familiar sight on the doorstep of City Hall, apparently without raising the interest of city officials. City Hall is virtually in the center of the park, bounded by Broadway and Park Row and Chambers Street and Barclay Street. Mr. Schuyler of the Parks Department said the cement had been used as foundation for fences, to construct pathways, and for trenches for utility cables. In April 1997, L'Aquila and its operations manager, Angelo Siska, pleaded guilty to filing false documents in connection with subcontracting work at Elmhurst Hospital Center in Queens in an attempt to secretly inflate its profit by $1 million. From 1991 to 1994, a number of city agencies denied contracts to L'Aquila because the company, in applying for city contracts, withheld information about criminal charges and civil complaints brought against the company and its officials. Despite its problems with the city, L'Aquila in recent years has obtained more than $100 million in state contracts with the Metropolitan Transportation Authority and the State Department of Transportation. Dino's grandfather, Dino Tomasetti Sr., is a legend in New York City, both for what he has accomplished as a first-generation immigrant and for the scandals that he became embroiled in. He owns a construction company, L'Aquila Group, and had been linked by the feds to organized crime. The elder Tomasetti, a mob-linked contractor who helped build One World Trade Center and the Goldman Sachs headquarters in Manhattan, and his wife were treated and released from the hospital earlier this week. At Ground Zero, builder is barred, but not his kin. The pieces of Dino Tomasetti Sr.'s construction empire are all over Ground Zero. A glance into the pit at the World Trade Center site reveals his company L'Aquila's cranes, heavy equipment, pickup trucks, and crews. His oldest son's blue and white Empire Transit mix trucks will deliver concrete for the foundation of the Freedom Tower, the most symbolic of 5 planned skyscrapers. His daughter's company will deliver the steel rods or rebar that strengthen the concrete walls. But Mr. Tomasetti, 79-year-old patriarch of this empire, is barred from setting foot on the 16-acre site. He is under indictment, accused of making thousands of dollars in illegal payoffs to union officials over a 10-year period. He denies the charges. Federal prosecutors and testimony have linked him to organized crime figures. His companies have been banned from obtaining city contracts and stripped of a special permit to operate a solid waste transfer station. One L'Aquila company was fined for its part in a scheme organized by a member of the Gambino crime organization to dump construction debris illegally in New Jersey. But none of this means his family will be on the sidelines when it comes to building what will be the city's tallest tower. The central contract for excavation and foundation work, which is worth tens of millions of dollars, was awarded to his youngest son, Dino Tomasetti Jr., 27, who until recently chauffeured his father from job site to job site in his black Lincoln Navigator. The developer building the Freedom Tower, Larry A. Silverstein, says that the elder Mr. Tomasetti owns one of the best foundation companies in the city, L'Aquila Construction. Hiring the son and his company, L'Aquila Group, was a way to take advantage of that expertise while avoiding doing business directly with the father, according to Silverstein executives. And then there are safeguards. Mr. Silverstein has hired an experienced integrity monitor with the authority to audit the books of the L'Aquila Group and watch its bank account to ensure that the elder Mr. Tomasetti will not make any money from the $2 billion project. The monitor, Thomas D. Thatcher, is a former inspector general at the New York City School Construction Authority who barred L'Aquila from getting school contracts in 1991. Whatever happens, at least on this job, will be entirely by the book, Mr. Thatcher said. Measures underscore the extraordinary lengths to which developers will go to operate in an industry long plagued by racketeering and corruption. Rightly or wrongly, suspicion hangs over many contractors in a city where only a handful have the resources and expertise for skyscraper projects. Developers and contractors in turn are vulnerable to extortion and the temptation to pay bribes to avoid delays that could cost millions. Mr. Tomasetti, a stocky man with a thick mane of gray hair, has pleaded not guilty to federal charges that he made thousands of dollars in payoffs to officials of the International Union of Operating Engineers, which represents heavy equipment operators. Prosecutors said the union officials, many of whom pleaded guilty in an earlier corruption case, allowed the contractor to use fewer workers and pay less overtime than required by their contract. Mr. Tomasetti is prepared to defend himself to the fullest extent possible, said Angelo Siska, the longtime chief of operations at L'Aquila Construction, who is also overseeing the foundation work at the Freedom Tower for Mr. Tomasetti's son, Dino Jr. He will be found not guilty. Mr. Tomasetti's companies are named after L'Aquila, Italy, his birthplace 58 miles northeast of Rome. He moved to New York after World War II and formed his first L'Aquila company in 1968. A biography supplied by Mr. Siska portrays him as a workaholic, can-do contractor who has labored on major projects for the State Department of Transportation and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, as well as for some of the top developers in the city. It cites a long list of charitable endeavors, including efforts on behalf of the City Parks Foundation, the United Jewish Appeal, and the Italian American Heritage Center. Today, Laquila's companies are working on the Goldman Sachs headquarters across Wall Street from ground zero, condominium projects at Battery Park City and Barclay and Church Streets, and the Bank of America headquarters at 42nd Street and the Avenue of Americas. Empire Transit Mix, one of only 8 concrete suppliers in the city, is providing concrete for the foundation of a superstructure of the new headquarters in the New York Times Company at 8th Avenue and 41st Street, which is under construction by Forest City Ratner, the newspaper company's partner and developer. Mr. Siska said Laquila Cruz worked very hard, and that's the reason they want us on the World Trade Center. He added, "We are the best qualified contractor to do the job beyond a doubt, or we wouldn't be there." The site. Mr. Thatcher, the monitor, was not hired until a month after the Laquila Group got the contract. He said that Dino Tomasetti would be using his father Laquila's contract trucks and equipment. The concrete will come from the Empire Transit Mix, which is run by Dino Tomasetti Jr.'s half-brother, Rocco Tomasetti, 40. And the rebar from J&E Industries, run by his half-sister, Elaine T. Scotto, 39. But while the Laquila crews will be paid for their work, Mr. Thatcher said the equipment is donated. The elder Mr. Tomasetti will not benefit. Mr. Siska of Laquila said he is unable to be enriched in any shape or form on that project, but it is his son's company. Mr. Silverstein and Mr. Thatcher may find it difficult separating the patriarch group from his empire. Laquila Group, Laquila Construction, Laquila Contracting, and Laquila Industries all use the same phone number and operate out of the same office at 1590 Troy Avenue in Brooklyn. A black Ford pickup truck at the Freedom Tower site has a sign on its door reading Laquila Industries, but is registered to Laquila Group. The city's Business Integrity Commission recommended that another Tomasetti company, Red Hook Crusher, be denied a sanitation department permit for a solid waste transfer station in Brooklyn, in part because Red Hook and Dino Tomasetti Sr. had insisted that he was only an investor in the company and that Rocco Tomasetti had little to do with the Laquila companies. But the commission's investigators later learned that the elder Mr. Tomasetti was the only person who could approve payments and issue checks for Red Hook, and that Rocco was still an important figure at Laquila, the report says. Over the years, Dino Tomasetti Sr. has also been linked by investigators to organized crime figures, including Ralph Scapo, a leading official of the Cement and Concrete Workers District Council and a reputed member of the Colombo family, and Edward Garofalo, a member of the Gambino family. In December 2004, Michael DiLeonardo, a high-level mob turncoat, testified in the racketeering trial of Peter Gotti that the Gambino family had a working relationship with Laquila, which paid it $75,000 in key money to get into the concrete business in Manhattan. "We had control of the industry," Mr. DiLeonardo testified. "For them to get into the industry, they would have to pay us." He testified that Laquito then paid $10,000 a month that was split between the Gambino and Colombo families.